Good evening. I'd like to call to order this July 17th meeting of the New Canaan Board of Education. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now I'll ask for a motion for tonight's agenda. To approve the agenda. Erica, second. Bob, all in favor? Okay, unanimous. Next, we have the approval of minutes for 3 meetings. We'll go meeting by meeting since the attendance was varied. First was the general meeting on June 19th. May I have a motion? Julie, second. Bill, all in favor? Okay, unanimous. Next is the June 19th, the special meeting that took place before the regular meeting. May I have a motion? Erica, second. Hugo, all in favor? Okay, and then I think there should be 2 abstentions for that meeting, or Julie, right? And then the last meeting is the special meeting on July 5th. I have a motion to approve those minutes. Julie, second. Bill, all in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. Great, thank you. Next is comments from the public. To ensure the public's right to be heard, the board has set aside time during the meeting for public comments. 2 minutes will be allotted to each speaker, and a maximum of 15 minutes to each subject. Is there anyone who would like to address the board? Please state your name. Thank you.
Hannah Chan, Springwater Lane, trying to control my time. I'd like to share some most recent DI and DI-related news with everyone. Number 1, almost 5 months ago, on February 23rd, University of North Carolina voted to ban DEI statements and compelled speech from admission, hiring, promotion, and tenure at its Board of Governors meeting. The school will not adopt the DEI task force's recommendations to incorporate so-called social justice initiatives into the curriculum. Some comments quoted. In the final analysis, it is a decision that is the best interest of all our children who will come to appreciate that excellence, not the phonotypes or ethnicity, should be the ultimate standard in their lives. DEI, like the censorship of dissenting views, is divisive and harmful to the academic mission. Number 2. About 2 weeks ago, on June 29th, the U.S. Supreme Court strikes down affirmative action programs in college admissions. Quote, by a vote of 6-3, the justices ruled that admissions programs used by University of North Carolina and Harvard College violate the Constitution's Equal Protection Clause, which bars racial discrimination by government entities. This is not about a specific ethnic or racial group. This is about entire nation. And this is not about college admission only. It's about returning to a merit-based selection process to make sure keep ourselves and our next generation competitive with the rest of the world, now and in the future. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Any other comments? Okay, we'll move on. So tonight we have 2 reports. The first is the cafeteria pricing presentation by Mr. O'Keefe.
Great.
Good evening, everyone. I'll make this fairly quick. As you all know, during the budget process, we assumed a 5% overall price adjustment for food services due to inflationary pressures, primarily driven by increases in food and beverage, paper, equipment, repairs, and replacement of equipment, not to mention labor costs. New Canaan hasn't had a price increase in, the chart says in at least 6, 7 years, but Brian tells me it's probably closer to 10. A lot of schools do this much more often than this. In fact, Greenwich, where I came from, would change their pricing every year, so they have updates every year. One other thing, when we're comparing with other peer districts, New Canaan does not participate in National School Lunch, as it is, somewhat restrictive as to what can be served, types of food can be served. The peer districts who do participate, they are able to support a lower price structure because they get state reimbursements. So we do not get that. The impact of the price increase would be about 5%. It's about 20%, 20 cents for hot meals in each of the schools. The elementaries would increase from $3.50 to $3.70, and at Saxon, the high school, the hot meal price would increase from $4 to $4.20. Free and reduced would remain exactly the same as they are today. So approval of this price adjustment will allow New Canaan Public Schools to continue its extremely high-quality food services program while enabling it to maintain financial stability. Let's see if we can get this. This chart, the third chart in the package, it's hard to read, but it's just an example of one of the examples of one of our vendors letting us know that inflationary pressures is driving them to increase their prices to us. And then the end of the presentation is just additional pictures to make everyone hungry. I'll go through them quickly. I mean, when you look at the pictures, they're really amazing. The quality of the food in New Canaan is, I've never seen anything like it. It's really amazing. And final is Michelle and the team. So they welcome your support. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Sean. Are there any questions, comments? Penny?
I just want to commend the entire food services team for the great job that they do, the quality of the food. We get a lot of emails, and we don't get emails complaining about the food. So I think these price increases are a long time coming and are due, and just wanted to say thank you to the entire team.
Bill?
I'm by no means arguing to go this route, but I'm just curious how much lower prices are with the state reimbursements at some of the with some of the districts that participate in the national program.
It depends, what they serve, and, I couldn't tell you exactly how much, but, for some districts, it's quite a bit of money, especially for the cities.
Bob?
Yeah, thanks for this. This is great. I think I want to come meet you all the time, actually. But being that we haven't probably raised prices in 10 years, and I know this is just a very minimal, should we think about more of a process going forward to look at pricing and maybe adjust it a little more frequently than whenever?
I think that is an excellent idea.
You know what I mean? Like,
I do.
I don't know if you want to do it every year, but something a little more frequent.
I think something a
depends
little bit
on
more
the budget.
frequently would be in order, for sure.
Yeah, I think it works when we're going through the budget and we're building out the budget. We also build this out and do some projections going forward. And, we've been pretty lucky over the last 10 years with inflation being as low as it has been, and then we had to jump. So, but I think each year our budget will take a little bit of a closer look at the pricing and maybe align it with some of our peer districts to make sure we're on par.
Yeah, but even if inflation's low, it's still there, right?
That's right.
So we're probably behind comparatively. I mean, 420 in 10 years. I think my kids probably are in elementary school. So that's a long time to hold prices.
It is.
And you're right, the food is
Food's
fabulous.
great.
The quality of the food is amazing. I've had some of the best lunches of my life in the cafeteria. Yeah.
I'm told the salad is the lost leader.
Yeah.
$6. You can
Crazy.
feed 4 people.
but
But I think it's part of the policies too, we're supposed to review these every year, right?
Yeah, and it's in the budget document, but we really don't talk about it.
Right.
I think we should talk
So
about it.
maybe like bring it more to the
Yeah.
front.
Yeah.
My question is just on, I mean, the food quality is amazing, and the fact that so much of it is prepared on-site is a huge plus for the kids and everyone who eats it. But have we had to change vendors recently because of price fluctuations, just to keep those prices in line? Have we had to make any calls like that with our?
I have not heard of any vendors that we changed as a result because it was pretty widespread.
Yeah,
And the vendor the example that's in there is Rockland Bakery.
right.
Is one of the places where we get muffins and cakes and so on. But I know, like, you use Wade's Dairy, their prices have gone up as well.
Any other questions? Okay, so I think this is probably just, Bob, along the lines of your comments. I'll ask for a motion to accept the adjusted food services pricing, I think just to acknowledge it officially, given that it's a price increase. So, anybody want to make the motion? Penny?
We need to vote on this? I mean, this is like pretty low down on the totem pole. I mean, I think we could just have a sense of the board that we think it's appropriate cafeteria raise prices, but I wouldn't know why we would, not the type of sort of small decisions that we usually get into. So I'm all for this, but for example, if they felt like they had to change some other prices, had to raise other prices, I wouldn't want them to feel like they had to come back to the board to make a presentation. So I just don't think we need to approve the prices, but we could have a general sense of the board if we think this is appropriate that the district is doing it.
Others? Because we haven't done it in so long, I was thinking that it would be important to acknowledge it and just to have it in the minutes.
Well, the ultimate sense is the vote.
Right, yeah.
Doesn't matter, I mean, I get what you're saying, it's a small thing, and you don't want to vote on every little tiny,
Well, and I want them to feel free if they need to change other prices to feel like they can do that without coming back. I think this is a very modest increase.
That works for us, and what we'd say is if we do adjust anything down the line, we'd let you know. So if we have to adjust in the moment, then we would have the flexibility to do that, but if we do, we certainly would make the boards aware where the prices are.
Yeah, I'm more,
Whatever you like.
I'd rather the motion be that we commit to reviewing this every year or something. If we're gonna do them, that to me is more important than approving this 5%. And just that we commit.
Yeah, I think by virtue of approving the budget, I think we approve the pricing. I mean, this is going to be a change in next year's budget, or is this is for the school year?
This is for this upcoming
Yeah.
school year.
And just to be fair, I mean, we have in past school years asked about the pricing on this a number of times. And the answer that had come back previously had been that there was no need to raise prices, that we were able to hold them for another year. So it's not, the board has actually asked about this a number of times, while we've been holding prices.
All right, so I think the sense is correct. Everyone's fully supportive of this? Yeah.
Right, we had the minutes reflect that.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll move on. Thank you, Ms. Cherokee. Great. All right, next up is our 2020 Elm relocation.
Yep. 220 Elm relocation. So I promised I'd be as short as I can, so I will. But glad to answer any questions or go into any depth that you'd like. We have our schedule now for the move. We have begun packing up some of the individual spaces. We're working with a moving company that was secured by the town to get the timeline in place and to get everything rolling. So on Monday, July 31st, we'll have delivered yellow e-crates, which is what they use to pack things that are going to move, and they stack and whatever. So we will be packing our offices, we'll be packing our individual areas, so each person around their cube or their office, whatever it might be. Then on Wednesday, August 9th and 10th, the moving company will come in and begin packing alternative, begin packing launch, and then pack all of the files and the common areas and the shared spaces. So they'll actually do that 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th as they're doing all that packing. And they'll be working with, obviously we're there, we'll be working with them and going through all of that. On Saturday the 12th, we've scheduled the move. So that will be the day that they literally are going from where we are to the new space and be able to unpack everything and get it all where we need it to be. So I'll be there, John, others, Dan, whoever, Jill, whoever is available will be there to help to manage that and navigate that with them. With that then gives us that following week, the week of the 14th, to sort of live in two spaces as we're finalizing that transition as much as we need to. We were due for a technology upgrade throughout central office, so we are moving into new equipment when we get over there, which will be helpful. We've got some pretty cool tech that's a small PC, because it's all SSD, there are no fans or anything, so instead of the towers that we have now, it'll be small devices that can be mounted under the desks, some new monitors and things, so that'll help with the move as well, since we'll be leaving the current technology where it is and literally walking into a new space with new technology. So that should work out. Bill Osman's been working on getting the fiber run over there, and he's committed to the end of the month. He should have that in place. Because obviously we can't get over there until the fiber line is in place. That gets us on the network along with the other buildings in town. The furniture is going to begin installation on August 1st. So the final clean should be done by then. Then Stanford office will be coming in to start installing the furniture, and they'll go right up until the 13th or so, right before we move over there on that Saturday, the 14th. So it's all going to happen pretty intensely in the next couple of weeks once we get into the end of July and beginning of August. But we've been preparing for it. We've been talking about the parking, talking a lot about the filing, where things are going to go, and we're just sort of finalizing on some of those fine details now. Looks like we're going to be able to move most, if not all, of the file cabinets that we currently have. Most of them will be in the basement. And between what we'll be using there is deeper storage for things that we don't need that often. So if it's something that you might need to retrieve a couple times a year, we could put it down there. If it's work files, then it has to be on the main floor. So we found a way to create an entire file room. We're changing the system a bit, and it'll be a shared space, but we believe it's going to work for what we need as far as active filing goes. And then, because we talked about budget, we will be talking a bit in the future about a long-term project to probably digitize some things and do some off-site storage and that kind of stuff. Paper just accumulates. So no matter how much space you have, eventually you're going to run out of it. The basement of Saks is pretty full with paper right now, which is hard to believe because it's almost the footprint of the entire building, but it's 100+ years of things. So it'll probably be a long-term project that we chip away at over the next decade or two if it all works. So, well, we're doing some research now. We'll talk about that in budget starting next budget year. Once we're out, we're not taking most of our furniture, so the police are moving into the space, and they'll be using our furniture that's there over the next couple of years. They may have to bring a couple of things over. They may need to bring their file cabinets, things like that, but in general, the space is in pretty good shape for them. And because they're also using Stanford office for their transition over with furniture, we've been in close communication with them about how that's going to work and how we can make that as smooth as we can for them. So still need to nail down the parking a little bit more and some of the fine details, like I said, but we're close, and by that third week in August, we should be over there and start in the new space. Now, on the other side, briefly, the student side, where we've got the two programs, they're finalizing the installation of the kitchen and the cabinetry. They're finalizing a lot of those different things. It's up, it's running, it looks very good. The AC is working, all those things. So, we talk a lot about the office space, but that's only half of the project. The other half is all the student space. And it really is going to be exciting to see as we open that up. We may even do something in the fall around a grand opening or something else, because they have the way it's set up, a launch in the front, alternative in the back, and a kitchen in the middle, really sets the stage for some cool cooperation and creativity and things between them. So looking forward to that. And that's also on track for mid-August completion and moving in.
Just a question for the students who've been, in our space for a long time. Will there be an opportunity for them to come before the first day of school, or communication with the parents? Just how are you managing the student?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So once we're over there, then we'll be working with our launch families directly and talk to them about coming to the space and being there before it's populated by other people and being able to make that transition. Alternative will make the same. I don't know if it'll be as much interest, but yeah, we've been talking about it quite a bit, and we'll begin that transition. And we're working with Bill and with Scott and the whole program to make that a success. We've also, I think I mentioned before, but as a reminder, we're expecting the installation of a crosswalk between our building and across the street to the market, which will be very good for the kids, and they can go for their other internships, jobs, other experiences. So that crosswalk's going to make a very big difference for launch and for alternative and probably our lunch orders.
Great. Any questions? All right, thanks for the update. We look forward to the tour.
Yeah, it's coming.
All right. Okay, so moving on to action items. Tonight we have the first reading of our district goals and objectives. So Dr. Lutzi, Dr. Prenti, you'll be walking us through those.
Yep, thank you. You have in front of you 2 copies. I think it's probably easier to use the March copy, just as we go through, but I wanted to give a clean copy as well. As we have in the past, Dr. Prenti and I have been meeting for a couple of months now to talk about sort of iterative changes and philosophical approach, whatever. We've also communicated with our department chairs, district leaders, district admins, principals, others to get feedback about things that specifically pertain to them. I know I've said it before, but it's, I think, always important to note that our district goals really serve as our North Star as we do our work throughout the year. This isn't all of what we do, of course. We're running an entire complex school district, but it is a very powerful tool for us, and I think it's one of the reasons why we're able to continuously make the strides that we do year after year as a district. There are so many districts that put together a 5-year strategiage plan. It looks great. They print it in color. It's got charts and graphs and this and that, and it goes into a binder, it goes on the shelf, and they look at it 4.5 years later. What I think is so powerful about our process and what we do is that this is a living document. This is something that we annually review. We talk with our administrators about it. We talk with teachers about it. The work we do with the building flows from the goals and the directionality that's in here. It also holds us accountable for iterative progress each year. So a goal, an objective that's under the goals now, we make some progress on it. The language changes, but it continues to move down that continuum as we continue to advance the ultimate goal of those objectives. One of the things we thought about this year was, are there some that have been sort of in the document for a long time where we can start to maybe phase off the document in order to make room for some others? Because one of the challenges in doing it the way that we do it is that it becomes too loaded of a document, right? Where you're trying to put everything in there and the kitchen sink and everything else. And it's never meant to be that. It's really meant to provide clarity, directionality, keep us focused. As you know, it rolls into our budget assumptions and related priorities. You know, it's something that I'll be talking about quite a lot in the budget season, as we always do. So it's a very functional document, and we don't want to fall prey to it just sort of carrying everything along behind it. We want it to stay new and relevant. So you'll see a couple of things are crossed out. Others may have been moved over a little bit, moved into some places. There's also a couple of new things on here. So with that, last piece, and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Prenti to go through goal 1. We have 5 goals. They're not in priority. We have kind of slang that we use internally for those 5 goals, right? We have our student learning goal, we have our communications, our capital teacher quality goal, our school climate goal, and our stewardship goal. But underneath all of those, there's so much more. And so that, those objectives are really important to think about and to see how, so it's the iterative process about study, and then to start to revise, and then to pilot, and then to further implement, and then review, and then all of those steps along the way of continuous improvement are captured in this document in a variety of different ways. And I think that is something to be very proud of.
Thank you. So as Dr. Lutzi said, goal number 1 has remained the same: increase student learning as measured by multiple and varied assessments to assure all students graduate prepared for a dynamic and complex global society. As you look at objective number 1, you'll note that there's no changes in that objective. We obviously feel very strongly about making sure that our curriculum, instruction, and assessments reflect local, national, and state standards and expectations. So we've left objective number 1 the same. We did decide to continue to keep the standard-based grading in objective number 1. And the reason being is, after Melinda's presentation to the board, we had suggested that we go to a workshop where we could really dive more deeply and take a look at that student work and really have a better understanding of how we're scoring the science, because that's the only area that we do the standard-based grading is in the science. And we just ran out of time this year to do that board workshop. So we would propose to do that board workshop in the fall, where we would bring some science teachers and really roll up our sleeves, take a look at that student work, really understand how we use the rubric, why we score the way we do in the area of science in middle school, and to give you a better perspective of that. As we move into objective number 2, you're going to see that we shifted the language in number 2 to capture some of the work we'll be doing as a district. And so the new language reads, ensure alignment across school district systems and mission, visions, values, and beliefs in order to continually enhance the learning experience for all students. And in objective number 2, this is where you will see the work that we're going to develop and articulate a portrait of the graduate. And that will be work that we'll be doing in the fall with Battelle. And you all had an opportunity to meet with them this past year. We also thought it was important to kind of finalize our recommendations for the SAC schedule. As you know, for the last couple years, we've really been taking a look at the SAC schedule to try to figure out what's the best way to maximize staff and to make sure that we're meeting all the needs that we have for the students at SACs. This year was a little bit more challenging as we had that 75-minute gap between upper and lower division. So we decided to work with a company, New Solutions, where they've actually come in and taken a look at all the work that we've been doing to see if there's a better way that we can program for the students. And so, like, for example, workshop block. There's a lot that's tucked into that workshop block. It's a time where students who have special education services might receive support. It's a time where students who need intervention might receive support. It's also a time where we teach health and digital citizenship and STEM. So is there better ways that we can be utilizing the time that we have at SACs to make sure that we're maximizing staff and looking at all the interest of the students? So we're hopeful to come forward to the board before the end of November with a new idea or several ideas, and that we could discuss and have conversations about. So we're excited about that work. The next is just our work on the healthier school start times, and I think as Dr. Lutzy put in the Friday update, we'll be giving you a review of our thought exchange and all of that and where we are with the results that we receive from students and families. And then also what's really important is we need to begin preparations for our upcoming decennial accreditation evaluation by the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, which is our NEASC visit. And so this will be the fall of 24-25. So, or it will be that school year. They actually haven't given us an exact date, so they actually come this fall, hopefully, and do some pre-planning with us. Certainly the work that we do of Portrait of a Graduate will be a big part of the NEASC visit as well. But we thought it would be important to put this into our district goals this year because it would be important for the high school to come, give you an update to explain what is NEASC, what does it entail, and there will also be some budget implications whenever we do a NEASC visit for accreditation. As we continue in objective number 3, this is really to continue our work with the national and state framework with our next generation science standards. And as you recall from Mr. Leduc's presentation, we've made a lot of progress in our high school courses, and you're just seeing the next phases of where we're going to go. So we've removed the geophysical, and now we're ready to look at the implementation of biology, and then we'll move into the implementation of chemistry, and we'll start doing the work in the physics. And so we'll continue to provide updates to the board and the progress that we're making. Number 4 is our work that we will continue with our vision of innovation. And many of you have had the opportunity to serve on the steering committee, and we're very appreciative of all the work. Some of you have even had the opportunity to sit on some of our Shark Tanks over at Sachs Middle School. So you'll see that A has remained the same, that we're going to obviously continue with our steering and building-based committees to really work through our priorities and develop the next steps of where we need to go for innovation. The committee has spent a lot of time talking about the design thinking process, and I think the next step of the work with the committee will be to define what our design thinking process is as a district, and then talk a little bit about how we'll be rolling that over and into curriculum throughout K-12. And then I think probably one of the most exciting, and you have to kind of toggle over to the not marked up version for the actual reading of it, but it reads as begin implementation of short and long range plans for integration of the renovated dome into the student experience K-12. So obviously, the dome is moving along. It's kind of exciting to walk in and see the renovations taking place, and we're very excited. And we'll be obviously going through some training in August on how to use the equipment within the dome, and then it's really all diving in and trying to figure out all the integration and how we'll be utilizing it across the district K-12. I think our goal remains that we'll be hoping to open it sometime in the fall, with the hope to run the courses in January, like the new astronomy class and other things that will be going through the dome. Objective number 6 is our work with response to intervention. And you'll see that those objectives have remained the same. It's really important that we continue to monitor the growth of, I'm sorry, I skipped one. I'm so sorry. Jumped down to number 6, and I should be on number 5. Thank you. But that is really all students will graduate with the technological knowledge and skills to succeed in a dynamic and complex global society. And objective A is really where you'll see the shift, where we really need to support our teacher leaders and our administrators, and really learning a lot about artificial intelligence and the variety of forms, and what does this mean for education, what does this mean for us as leaders, what does this mean for teachers, and what does this mean for students and families. And so we'll be doing some work in that area and exploring that and trying to figure that all out as the world is figuring it out as well. And then you'll see that we're going to continue to obviously monitor our digital citizenship curriculum, K-12, and we'll be finalizing that crosswalk between the computer science standards and the New Canaan Public School curriculum. So Mr. Salvestrini was in front of the board quite a bit, and this was the one presentation that he did not give to the board, so we'll make sure that he comes back again in the fall to give you an update on where we are with the computer science standards and what we'll need to make as shifts in our curriculum. So where we are, and that's a K-12 focus. So those are the new standards that came from the state. Now on to the response to intervention, where you'll see that the objectives have remained the same. It's really important that we continue to make sure that all students are making growth and meeting our benchmarks and meeting the state standards and national standards. And so obviously this is important to our work that we do every day. We did remove the impact on student learning and progress from COVID, obviously. We know what the outcome has been. So, and then we'll move on to objective number 7. And this is really the next phase of the work as we're talking about the visual and performing arts. So as Mr. Sneath presented probably about a year ago, he talked a lot about the progress that they had made in the art curriculum, and now we'll be finalizing the music curriculum. And then we'll be creating some anchor sets for art and music that go along with our units of study. One of the exciting things in this goal will be the redesign of the VPA website and update that and work closely with Michelle to make that look wonderful and give people information. And then we're going to obviously continue to always look at the scheduling for music, especially and art as we share across elementary and Saks Middle School, and making sure that we're providing the best services for our students. So we'll move into, I can answer questions on goal number 1, and then maybe we'll go into goal number 2. And Brian, you'll probably think you're on to goal number 2. So any questions on goal number 1, any of the objectives?
I have one question about 5 on the technological knowledge and skills. 5B, which is monitor the implementation of the digital citizenship curriculum. And I know Matt has presented on that, And honestly, I forget a little bit where we are on implementing it. But we have fully implemented it now?
Right, so we have done a full implementation K-12, and we spoke this past spring about leaning it more towards digital wellness as it integrates in with all the work that we do with emotional intelligence and certainly digital literacy in our health. So we do have lessons that we deliver to all students, K-8, those are the assured lessons, and then particularly in grade 9, they hit in our health classes. And then it's really just integrated throughout the rest of high school. So really now it's more about monitoring that implementation and seeing if we need to make tweaks and adjustments.
So I guess my only question then about that is, since sort of the ways our kids get hit, social media seem to change every year, and there are new apps and things like that, do we need to do a little bit more than monitor? Do we need to monitor and adjust curriculum? It just seems to me it might.
So we might need a stronger verb.
Yeah, just
because we
slightly
do.
stronger verb, because I think we're probably doing that. But, and as we see new things come up.
Yep.
You all guys are, responding to it. But I just thought we were doing probably more than monitoring.
Right, and we do have the student focus group, so then we stay on top of new apps that come out, and it's about teaching those skills so that whenever something new comes out, that you can just apply the skills that they've been taught, but I'm happy to maybe come up with a stronger verb than monitor.
Yeah, or it can be monitor and adjust as appropriate, whatever. Or something else that you think more accurately reflects what we've done.
I think it's interesting that you focused on that one, because Jill and I had some conversation about it, because typically after we've fully implemented K-12 and gone through the cycle, you wouldn't see it here anymore, right? Because this is what we do. But because, as you said, because of the nature of social media and the challenges that it poses, we thought it was good to just always keep it somewhere on the page. So
I appreciate
we're aligned with your thinking, so we can change that language. Yep.
Bob?
Thank you. Quick question on the innovation on B. I'm just trying to get a handle on the innovation goal in general. Feels like it's still a little nebulous to me. So I was just curious on, is the plan to sort of present how innovation, what's that going to look like in the curriculum and in the district before we do it? It sounds like we're piloting plans to be, but I'm just trying to get it. I love this goal, by the way. I just don't know what it is.
Sure. So I think when we have a vision, and the last steering committee, we talked about some of the guiding principles that should go along with the vision.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the areas that we spoke specifically about was trying to come up with the district's design process. Like, what is it that we want to adopt? Every district that has done innovation kind of adopts their own process.
Mm-hmm.
Once you adopt that process, then it's easy to start thinking about where does that process apply in the students' everyday work. I think right now we have been piloting some different examples. I think we've given you some examples, like when we do, the students all have to go out and design their own shoe that they're going to wear through climate, or they have to design something that's going to allow something to drop and protect the egg from breaking. So there's a lot of different things that we do that relate right in with our social studies and science units already, and we've already done some of that integration in over at our middle school. And so now it's just really trying to see where else can we take our design thinking and where else can we push our kids to be critical thinkers and to be problem solvers for the future. And so we did have a group of teachers that headed off again this past summer in June to Nueva Institute, and we also had them head off to ISTE. So we do have an update that we'll put into the Friday newsletter for all of you so that you can get that, and then I would imagine that we'll come in the fall and give you an update on where we are. That's part of the steering committee work as well. Does that help to answer your question?
A little bit. So the process you were talking about, what does that look like? Is that
So it's the process that the students would follow when they're trying to solve a problem of any sort. So whether it's, something that's integrated right in with their science curriculum, or whether it's something that they're solving a real life problem at the high school level that they've been posed with. So it really could range from something that we design that goes right in with our science curriculum and our social studies curriculum, like the example I gave, or it could bring it to a real life example at the high school where they're asked to use some of their physics and their math classes to solve a problem. And of course, my mind is drawing blank when I'm thinking of what they were solving in one of their AP science classes that they gave as an example. It will come to me when we're off talking about this topic.
I think that answers it. All right, thank you.
Erica?
I have a question on 2B, so the SACS schedule changes. It sounds like we'll get an update in November on what those potential changes are. Are we anticipating making any changes during this next school year, or that's not on, like, there's
No.
nothing that we think could come out of the process that we would implement immediately? We're looking towards next year.
So the schedule that they create during the summertime will have to stand as is for the upcoming school year, because that's really how we're utilizing staff. And so teachers are working either upper division, lower division, or sometimes they're crossing the two divisions to meet the needs. So we have world language teachers that service children in 7th and 8th grade, and then they also teach foreign language in 6th grade. So they have to cross the two divisions. So we still have to keep the schedule as is. It would be more about the future and what the suggestions would be for where we go for the 24-25 school year.
That makes sense. And then for that 2D, the NIASC, is that how you pronounce it?
Yes.
Yeah, NIASC. I'm interested, and this might not be the moment for it, but learning more and understanding, having just gone through Tri-State. I know Tri-State had a specific question, the essential question that was being answered, and this is much broader, but understanding a little bit better. Is it as intense at Tri-State? What is
Probably more intense than Tri-State.
That's good anchoring.
It's fundamentally different in that it uses an external set of standards and looks for, and uses that as the measurement for the school. And really, it's mandatory. It's the accrediting body of schools throughout New England. There are 6 accrediting bodies across the country. Ours is NIASC. They've been making changes to it over time. I served as a commissioner for some time, so you'll have extensive updates down the line.
Great.
But it's a requirement to maintain accreditation as a public school.
And then I had a question on the health curriculum. I know that we were sort of slowly moving down in terms of adding health classes to younger ages, right? We started 4th grade, 3rd grade, moving down, and I know we were in the range of adding 1st grade kindergarten. Is that all sort of fully implemented now, and that's kind of where we're just, at least for the time being, it's just a matter of staying the course on it?
Yes, so we have already implemented the K through 4 curriculum, and then we've made the tweaks to the 5th and through 8th grade curriculum based on what was taught in K4. And so we're at a place right now that until we're ready to probably dedicate more time to the health, we're probably at a place where we're just going to continue to monitor that implementation and continue to give the parent updates and to continue to seek feedback from, the community as far as what next steps are. But if we were probably going to increase our health time that we give to our students in K-8, we would also need to be talking about the increase of staffing. So you have to be health certified to teach in the middle school. You don't need to be health certified to teach in an elementary school. You can just be K-6 certified. But right now it is being taught by health teachers because it's just part of how they can integrate in and do quick 20 minutes, and then they move to another class, and so it's a way that we get it done and get the lessons taught with fidelity and to make sure that we've got assured experiences across the 3 elementary schools. But it would be something that would really be a bigger budget conversation. I think we're also waiting to see where we're going with the SAC schedule. So is health going to remain as just a quarter class that kids take during that workshop block of time? Or is it something that's going to be integrated throughout the course of the year? And so as we're looking at that, then that might also trigger what we might want to do with the health in the elementary school.
And then my last question was on 7. So when Alan comes, because I know there was talk of him possibly coming back soon, will he be able to elaborate on what the objectives are for the new website? Because I'm interested in understanding kind of what problem we're solving with updating the website.
Sure.
I just had a question on, I guess it's 6B and E, and I'm assuming B, like E has sort of been subsumed by B because we're always focused on the district benchmark, the performance assessments. But are we, do you think it's important to leave room to close remaining gaps, or do you feel confident that, I mean, obviously our data last year was very strong, and are we?
I think the high-level answer is it's redundant. Right?
Yeah.
The purpose of RTI is to identify and address those facts, no matter where they're from, whether it's from the pandemic or otherwise. So in implementing sponsor intervention, that's what it does. So we just didn't think we needed to say why.
All gaps.
Yep.
Okay.
If there's a gap, we're going to identify it, figure out a way to fix it, do what we can do.
Penny?
In Goal 1, Objective 2, we've taken out the second sentence that dealt with the New Canaan High School graduation standards, because we did that work. But I was wondering if we wanted to maybe keep, we had worked sort of hard on the last part of that, and I was wondering if we maybe wanted to keep the portion of it that talked about ensuring that students gain the knowledge and skills needed to succeed in a complex global society. So you could delete just all students will meet the New Canaan High School graduation standards, and you could just say something like, at the end of enhance the learning experience for all students and ensure students gain the knowledge and skills needed to succeed in a complex global society. Just gives a little bit of color to what is actually a pretty robust statement in number 2 in terms of what we're doing. That's a lot of.
It's a bit, I mean, I can give a little more context for number 2. I'm certainly glad to consider. And Jill and I really bounced this language around quite a bit, so it's definitely a work in progress process. But the thinking was to articulate an objective that really spoke to the systems thinking, systems level work that we're doing. Mm-hmm. So like a portrait of the graduate will impact all students K-12 across the system. The schedule at SACS will impact every middle school student. And it's sort of those operational systems drivers that create the conditions and provide the opportunities for kids to excel, right? So we felt like we do that systems level work often, and we do it because of its impact on the student outcomes. So we wanted it to be in Goal 1. And same with the benefits of the transition to the new start time, right? That's a systems thinking approach. And then NEASC is a systems review and feedback. So that's where but without using the word systems thinking, we were trying to figure out how do we capture that. The student-based outcomes, I mean, that is what the end of the sentence is all about. So we certainly could look to be a little more specific about, sort of continually enhance the learning experience for all students. I don't know if you need both, right? Enhance in order to, or can you could replace enhance. We could wordsmith it a little bit to.
I think, whatever, think about it. I wasn't sure, at first I thought, oh, it's good without taking it out, and then I thought it gives a little bit of context. It relates to the overall Goal 1, but if you don't think it's appropriate, I'm not. I think what we're doing as a district, I thought it was just sort of maybe keeping that language in some form was helpful, but if not, I'm not going to push it.
Okay, we'll play with it a little bit.
If we do add that language back in, can we add local and national before local?
yeah, we'll run a few things together and put them out there and see.
Okay, shall we move on?
You can tell who decided who's going to talk about what. Number 2. Just kidding. So number 2 is our communications goal, and actually it was pretty exciting to reflect on where we are today based on where we were last summer and all the work that was ahead of us and the challenges of the transition to a new site and trying to navigate all of that work. So really, I mean, much of it stays the same, right? Because the communication's on a continuum. But number 2, instead of having to develop and implement, now we're going to promote, continue to develop, and sort of broaden the utilization. And as you know, we've developed an app that's out there. The calendar integration now is really excellent. If you haven't gone on to take a look, either the website or the app, you can subscribe now to any one of our building calendars or the district calendar, and it'll just populate your calendar for you. It's really very well done, right through the website and right through the app. And there's some other pieces too that continue to make it a powerful tool for people to use. So very happy with that, and beyond that, continuing to do our work to research and implement best practices in district communications. We've got lots of good ideas, and we're trying to figure out exactly how do we get on pace to continue the good messaging, because we don't only want to be in the papers during the budget season. We want to make sure that people know everything great that's going on, and take some time to celebrate the wins, right, for our kids, for our staff, for our schools, and for the community. So we are having those conversations now because the summer's the time you do planning for the future.
I just wonder on number 3, objective 3, if it makes sense to add a goal to expand reach, because I think it's, now that it's there, just communicating and trying to get parents to subscribe to our social media and really engage, because there is a lot of benefit, and I am not sure we've, saturated that yet.
Mm-hmm. It's true. Actually, I go out and speak with groups, the Exchange Club, the Rotary Club, the Board of Realtors, others, many of whom don't have children or grandchildren in the system, and they're equally engaged and interested and want to learn about the things that we're doing. So maybe it's, there's a way to broaden it, beyond sort of those direct stakeholders, because those are one-offs where I get once or twice a year and I do that, but would there be ways to follow up, keep them in the conversation, because they add so much to what we do. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm thinking just even within our parent community, just in terms of the social media and the app, to your point, there's just so many easy wins in the app, people use it.
I was wondering if there's something that we can add to Objective 2, where just keeping parents apprised of what's happening with certain legislation that comes up throughout the year. I feel like what's the national, state level. I found in the community that sometimes I get asked questions from parents that I don't know the answers to. Also, there are parents that are not happy to hear about certain things that are happening that they didn't have any time to prepare for, knew nothing about. So I'm just wondering if something as simple as a link on the website, or not everything, but like maybe a quarterly summary somewhere where here's what happened, because like we get through CABE, right? Like here's what happened in Hartford, or who's happening at a national level that is going to materially impact our district as it relates to education, so that parents just feel like they're aware and that they can make preparations for things that they may or may not be thrilled about.
Okay. I'd want to think about it, because the best way is to do something like that, because as you know, things change very quickly up there, and often things will happen in the 11th hour, and an implementer bill or a budget bill or something else that we didn't even know about, and then people do feel blindsided for sure. I think that maybe as a board we might want to think about, do we have, whether it's CABE or local or other folks that are really directly involved, come to the board. We've done that before. We've had Shipman and Goodwin present for us. We've had CABE present for us and come and talk about sort of things that are happening. And it doesn't always have to be retrospective. It could be here are some of the things that are on the table for discussion. So I just would want to think about what it might look like. I agree. I mean, every time I think I know what's going on, something shifts, and that's my concern, right? So maybe it is a live link that gets to some of the recent, whether it's hearings or other things. As you know, I meet with local folks, I meet with state folks, we have conversations about specific things. They're generally pretty good about calling for feedback and getting some information, but a lot of that happens early in the session. Once they really get into it, they can be pretty sequestered and tough to reach, because they're just, it moves quickly. So understand the objective. I would want to think a little bit about what it might look like this all.
I appreciate that. I just think having it listed as a goal, it just seems that they've been really busy up there. And we're getting more and more questions, but I've been part of those hearings, I've watched them, and it's crazy. It's said, a few hours, a couple weeks later, you don't hear anything, and then there's 700 pages in a law that gets passed that's now being implemented 3 months later. And it's just, parents, they do feel blindsided. So, and then, we also don't want them blaming us for stuff that was completely out of our control. If we knew about it, even just knowing about it. Obviously, a lot of this stuff we have no control over, just being able to say, here's what's happening. If you have questions, direct them to your Tom O'Day or somebody else,
Right.
just to keep the people apprised.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I also wanted to follow up. I know we've talked about a board document management system at different
Yes.
points. Is that something that fits within here, communication?
It could be something that we're planning to do. We're working out the details now about implementation and getting that going, but we do anticipate having that new system up and going as we start the new school year.
Okay. So is it, we're doing it, but it doesn't necessarily
I think it's a case
rise to the
of,
level
it could,
of
but
major
now
miracles?
we're, I don't think it's,
And it'll be pretty much completed.
it's probably not goals worthy.
Yeah.
Once we're in the space, it's going to be as easy or easier than what we're doing now. So I think it'll be, if we just, all the work gets done beforehand, then we check the box, go live, and instead of going through Google Docs for your info, you'll log into Board Docs. It'll be a little bit more organized than what we have now. It'll archive it for you, make it easier to get to them. I think.
Fair.
Okay. Bree?
So I'll do the first part of 3, and then I'll turn it over to Brian. So 3 is really talking about our teacher and evaluation system that we have in place. So really, one of the areas that we're talking about, once again, speaking of legislation, there is some new legislation that is coming out from the state of Connecticut on teacher evaluation. So we're closely monitoring what that legislation might mean, and certainly we'll review that and then decide where we need to go with requirements and expectations based on our current teacher evaluation professional learning document, as well as our leaders evaluation and professional learning document as well. I think both of us are pretty confident that it's not going to look too different from what we're currently doing, and our process is pretty rigorous, so I think that we'll be in a good place from that perspective. And usually there is some type of waiver that you'll have the opportunity to apply for, and we'll be able to speak about years of experience with our document that we've utilized. One of the new domains that we're really excited about adding this upcoming school year is our strategic teacher support domain, and that is really for coaches. And so, and when I use the word coaches, I want to make sure that we're clear. It's really defining how we would evaluate a department chair, a curriculum coordinator, a dean of students, a reading specialist, a literacy specialist, a math specialist, the classroom coach position that we put in, our technology integrators, the OG fellow. So it's kind of all those leaders that are working very closely with our staff and doing that ongoing coaching with our staff in their curriculum areas. And so we created a new domain. We're going to call it domain number 7. And it would be in particular for those teacher leaders. So we're going to go through some training, and then we'll be rolling that out. We're very excited about it, so are the teacher leaders, because it will really give them an opportunity to hone in an area that they really want to grow in as well. And so we have different areas like your knowledge of your skills, your data analysis and application, the knowledge of adult learners, your communication with the stakeholders, and then we have a rubric that we design similar to all the other domains that we have within our document. And so that will be rolled out, and then, and we'll use that obviously with all those people that I just talked about, and then certainly E, we thought it would be important to come back to the board to talk about the effectiveness of the newly established classroom coach position across the 3 elementary schools. And so we want to make sure that we're reviewing that and giving you updates and having you have the opportunity to talk with Susan and Jen Eldridge, who will be the new classroom coach for the 3 elementary schools.
And then the objective 2 is brand new, and all the language is brand new, and I can speak to the purpose and goals, objective behind that. So the objective itself is to recruit, hire, and retain high-potential faculty and staff in all departments across the organization. And that's really in response to some of the challenges that the current hiring environment has brought on for all schools and probably all industries. It's something that obviously we focus on regularly. We put a lot of energy into it, but we really wanted to elevate our discussion and thinking about it even further by making it into its own objective and then articulating a couple of things that we're going to be doing. One is to research and consider participation in teacher residency programs. We've been learning more and more about some very creative approaches at some of the universities to really build the pipeline. As you know, we've been talking about the dearth of interns available. So this year we've actually been able to bring in a couple of interns and get them hired up for next year. So that looks like it might be moving in the right direction. I just recently learned, and Jill as well, about the Sacred Heart teacher residency program that they've been putting together. They've been doing it for a couple of years now in the region, just right around them with Fairfield and Bridgeport, and now they're looking to expand those programs. So, it could be an opportunity for us to get to onboard some folks early in their career as they're getting their certification, have them working in the district and go from there. So we felt like that was one strategy that we'd want to really pursue and talk with the board about. Another is something that we do all the time, but again, it's about sort of new focus and dimensions with it. It's to successfully complete the collective bargaining negotiations that are in cycle, and we're really focusing on ways that we can modernize the agreements with our employee unions for the benefit of everybody. The idea there being, can we find ways to build in some flexibility to pilot creative solutions to the challenges of the workplace today? A very quick, for instance, is many municipalities are going to 4-day work weeks. So I'm not saying our schools can go to 4-day work weeks, but when you're competing in an environment where folks can go to one place or the other, non-instructional staff, what's going to be more appealing? So how do we modernize our agreements a bit so that we can try to pilot some creative approaches in both our faculty but also our staff? So we're thinking deeply about what some of those things might be, and I think people will be receptive because it opens the door for some creative approaches that helps everybody, them and us.
Those like 0.8s, or are they?
No.
They're
4-day weeks, 10-hour days. Yeah. 3-day weekend, 4-day week with 10-hour days. And it's, especially the central office staff, it's tough, right? When you've got pretty light roles, whether it's payroll or something else, they can make the same money and do it in 4 days. Right? So it's the lifestyle piece that people sometimes are after, and we're thinking, how can we modernize these agreements to give us some flexibility to make some of those lifetime adjustments, lifestyle adjustments for them. Another is to continue to review and implement appropriate tools to inform the hiring decisions throughout the recruitment and hiring process. So as you know, we talked a little bit about digital literacy. We're now hiring folks who are out of school who grew up as digital natives. They've been using this stuff all of their lives. It leads to other lines of inquiry prior to hiring folks. So we're continually learning about that as well and implementing some new things and testing them out. It's going well. It's something we're going to stay on the forefront of. And then the last is our professional learning for our faculty, our new folks that come in with TEAM, which is for new teachers, and they learn through different modules around teaching best practices, around the Common Core, Connecticut Common Core of teaching, and other competencies. And we've got a staff member who spearheads that through the Human Resources Department, and she'll be continuing doing that work. And really, again, thinking about how do we do it, how do we modernize it a bit, and make sure that everything that's running through there is relevant and important for folks in our environment.
Bill?
Just real quick, when are you guys anticipating giving the board an update on the class report? Is that sort of a mid-year thing? Is it an end-of-year thing? Just
I think it's a pre-budget thing, at least as a touch base, right? To say, we invested in this, and here are the early returns, so to speak. Like we did that with the Literacy Academy, if you recall, when we started. I don't think we'll have anything definitive at that point, but at least we can speak to how things are going and, a little bit of directionality one way or the other. And then at the end of the year, probably summer, we'd have time to print more data and do a little deeper look. But definitely a touch base prior to the budget, probably, November, December. It's one of the advantages of having Jen Eldridge move into the role. She knows our schools, knows our people, knows our kids, knows the resources. So the getting her on board would be very good.
It's more of a comment, objective 2. I think this is a really important addition, and I think the timing is right, and it just conveys the focus and the attention that we're giving to this. The people part of our business and in terms of who we hire, and I think it aligns really well with the goal that was written under Goal 1 around mission, vision, values in order to enhance learning experience. So I just want to acknowledge that, because I think those two tie in really nicely together, and I'm pleased to see this as a goal.
And I'll go with the 4. Okay. So our goal 4, we've got 3 large objectives with the indicators, things underneath. Our first is about our school and district climate plans. As mentioned before, some things come out of Hartford. So something that came out of Hartford that I actually think the board will appreciate would be the school climate surveys now are an annual event instead of every 2 years. So we had talked about doing it for ourselves annually anyway, and the board had talked about doing it each year. So that's a slight change here. We are reviewing our advisory lessons here at the high school. As you know, Tri-State did come in, gave us a great report with some great feedback, so we're taking that feedback and thinking about ways to continually improve. I know Dr. Bliss is working closely with high school. You'll see we crossed out connections because we're thinking that may be sort of reformed and rebranded and kind of reconceptualized a little bit around what's most effective with our high schoolers. Because as we continue to mature with our ruler approach across K-12, these students now that are coming up have been immersed in it as they've come through elementary and into middle. So the experience should be different, right? We're not just going to keep reintroducing them to tools that they already use and know. So we're really taking a good deep look at that. Implementing the school climate surveys and reviewing the testing data. As you know, we give the surveys, and then Susan works with and we all work together as the administrative team. We typically use some time during our retreat in the summer to analyze those data and to develop some plans. And then we bring it back to the kids. What we had been doing, and what we're looking to get back to doing, is putting focus groups of kids together to do some of that action planning based on the results, and having them sort of work through solving some challenges and improving things so that they can own the results and have that experience of having data, developing a plan, implementing a plan, and evaluating the outcome. So we're also looking to go back to getting the students more directly involved with that. What comes next, 2 ABCD, you see is all redlined because that really has been rolled up into that objective 2 under goal 1 about continually improving. That was all about the school start times, start and end times, healthier start times. In objective 2 here, the change that we have made is really the teacher residency program. Back in the beginning, it was really the CES program was kind of the only game in town as we were having that conversation, and we really felt that's an HR initiative. We want that to be something that we use to build our pipeline, and again, working through Sacred Heart and others that might be developing something. So we moved that up. As you know, there's some of the others are continuous kind of efforts as we're partnering with the community agencies and working with New Canaan Cares. Special congratulations to Colleen Proster, who I think started today as the new executive director of New Canaan Cares. And she's already reached out, and we're going to be scheduling some time together to talk. And that involvement is picking back up again, which is wonderful. So some of these are ongoing things as we've sort of outlined them here. We go through. The number 3 is to analyze and update safety and security plans and practices. And good news is on Wednesday, I believe, I know actually, on Wednesday, the town council will be taking up the approval of the special appropriation for the security package that the board has been discussing. So I'm optimistic that that should be approved and the funding will be available. We're still waiting for feedback from the state. We haven't heard anything yet. Sean has called and been in communication with them, but regardless, it's the full funding of the packages we've discussed. And so that work will be underway, and that work will be ongoing throughout the course of the year because, as you know, it's pretty extensive. And we'll be giving the board updates on that. That's not necessarily directly in here, but thought it was relevant. We are going to be implementing an anonymous reporting system. We've been looking at, and we're going to be using the Sandy Hook Promise system, which provides an anonymous reporting system for students in middle and high school, grades 6 through 12. It also includes some training for staff, partnership with the police, developing frameworks of response based on level of communication when it does come through anonymously. It's a very good system. We've talked to a number of districts that use them. Sandy Hook Promise, you obviously know where it originated and its goals and purpose. For school districts in Connecticut, there's no charge as well. So it makes a lot of sense for us to get on board and start using this to benefit our kids. More information to come. Bill Tesber is spearheading it for us, but I really think it's the right thing at the right time for us to have as another layer of protection for our kids. And of course, Crisis Advisory Board continues to meet and do that work, and they're always available, but we generally have their presentations to the board every so often. It's not an annual thing. But if the board's ever interested in learning more, of course, we can always have that conversation. Good. I will pause there.
Sure, I have one. So you spoke to it. Within one, I do think that there were several learnings that came out of Tri-State that we want to make sure are embedded. And so I think, if we look at E where it says provide increased support to students and families, I think there's some of it's embedded in there. I think continue to offer parent education opportunities, it's embedded in there. So I'm not saying that we need to change the language, but just acknowledging that there are some of those things that came out of Tri-State that if we're not explicitly putting it in our goals, that's primarily where we're going to see the work that comes out of the result from Tri-State.
That's right. The purpose of a peer review is to get their feedback and work through some of the objectives, get some ideas from people who don't live here, so to speak, and help use that to continuously improve. So, that's one of the documents, some of the feedback that we'll be using. Yep.
With regard to the school security audit, I think it's appropriate to pick that up because we did that last year. But what I was wondering is, as a board, when should we think about putting that back in? With our facilities, we sort of look at those every 4 to 5 years and do a deep dive. Not necessarily to answer tonight, but I'd be curious about maybe this is something that we want to put in like every 2 years, every 3 years, every 4 years. We always talk about continually enhancing security, and I thought the audit gave us some good ideas.
Yeah. Well, agreed. And there is something we're looking into now where they train a local team to perform your own audit, periodically and whatever. So we may do that with our campus monitors, a couple of our SROs, maybe a couple of admins, have them going through some of that training so that they can sort of spot check a building here and there and whatever. Because doing the audits is a pretty big ordeal, having them come in. And what inevitably happens is, the first building has absolutely no idea they're in the district. By the time you get to the fifth, they've rolled out the red carpet. So you want to have that internal capacity to be able to do it sporadically when you want to. I also think after we implement some of these upgrades that we're talking about, will be a good time to just run through some of the new protocols that will be in place, and it'll help us to continue to tweak.
I'll bring up F that was removed. We didn't finish that, right?
We didn't. Certainly not against it. And the Chief Federico and I are on the same page. We can work through it and whatever. I think that it's an albatross.
No, I know. Right? We should keep it on till we do it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sure.
Five.
And we'll go into goal 5. And really, it looks like we've crossed out a lot, but really what we've done is just consolidate some of the language, but not really remove much. So any adjustments here, as you'll see, there's none in 2. We are starting our revised and updated facility study, which will allow us to revise that 5-year capital project look ahead. So we anticipate having that in the fall to have the presentation before the board by the representative who's doing the study. And then when we get into the budget season, we'll have our new 5-year look ahead, which will be very good and very helpful. As you can recall, the one that we had really did inform the decision-making around the capital improvements that we've done. This will also take a closer look at our HVAC systems across the district. I think we're in pretty good shape, but we'll have the expert take a look and see. Some of the equipment does get a bit old. We've got the chillers in the back, for instance, here at the high school that are enormous towers, but they were put in with the renovation in 2006. And they're used pretty frequently as we get into heat. So they'll be able to tell us lifespan, give us a plan, and help us develop out the next 5-10 years around that. Certainly enrollment projections and patterns is a big deal. So we've had the 2 groups come in. Yes, we use NASDAQ as usual. We had the other group come, the SLAM group. Of course, they didn't say the same thing, so now we've got to keep a close eye on things, and Jill, again, just scheduled another meeting for us to look at the enrollment. I think I mentioned before, I don't know if I did at a meeting, but our budgeting is holding up currently. We have used the enrollment variability adjustments that we anticipated. We've had to use all of them. So we're running right. We've got some upside capacity, not unlimited though, so we're keeping a close eye on it and the number of sections that we have. And then we'll really, I think once the year gets underway, have a better sense of, is it leaning more towards the NASDAQ? Is it leaning a little bit more towards SLAM? I think we'll be better informed to make some more projections and predictions. And as you know, we'll have a new projection from NASDAQ as we get into mid-October. They use the October 1 enrollment to do that. And then the last one is simply, instead of planning to relocate 220, we are actually doing it. So it's going to be, as I said, the move to a board docs management system probably isn't goal-worthy or objective-worthy. The 220 Elm is definitely goal-worthy. But we are excited about it. I think, again, the student space is exciting to see what they have, and I think that it's some new ways of working for all of us. And some of the departments are already digitizing some of their files and figuring out how it's all going to work. So it's going to take some time, but we're excited. It's going to work out. So we added that in at the end to complete that transition.
One question.
Sure.
On the facilities study and 5-year capital plan, I think that's a great idea, but I was wondering, can it also incorporate like the technology piece of it? So you take a really broad look and detailed look at all the technology and have a really detailed plan for that as well. I know you have but I'm talking about maybe managing, like, so how are things tracked, how are things, just.
Yeah, we started doing that in the budget, your suggestion is spot on. So yeah, to really take that to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it could also give you advice on what's changing in technology. So like these switches or routers are starting to, the trend is to move to different things, and maybe it's fiber or whatever you do, but at least it's just part of the facility plan to some extent, even if it's maybe just backbone stuff, not the, child level.
Right. Yeah, I think that's right. I think there are a couple of levels, right? So I'm always surprised by the amount of technology it takes to run the building. Right, so you've got all of your kind of back-end stuff with your climate management systems and the GASES and the other things. So that definitely should be in there. And then you're right, the infrastructure that it sort of sits on, right, doesn't work without it. We can, doing the numbers of devices, number of Chromebooks, all those things, we'll do those in the budget process regardless, and you're right, it's a moving target. So this year we need 100, another one we need 200, and that might shift depending on breakage or whatever, but this is kind of that long-term replacement. Like a network device can be $150,000. To build it in long term. Yeah, let's think about how to add that in there.
Yeah, I wondered, because I was thinking, I was just thinking about along your lines, whether it made sense under number 6 to add something around the infrastructure and the technology piece of, I know we've talked about looking at that in terms of how we surface you know, with the services we contract
Mhm.
for that infrastructure piece.
Mhm.
Maybe it belongs in both places, but,
Yeah, as long as it's municipal.
yeah.
No, I think it's a fabulous
Yeah.
suggestion. I was just wondering who you hire, like for the facility study, you typically hire an architect who comes in, that's who we've hired in the past to do it. So an architect, I
Would know.
don't think would be the right person for what you're talking about. So what type of specialist are you thinking that we get to look at it?
I don't know, it may be, I mean, it depends on the, I mean, there's people that specialize just in building, technology.
Like a Cole Ronan or something, or something?
That could be separate than, like, technology backbone stuff might be a different thing, you know, so.
Well, and there are companies that do network audit.
Yeah.
We've had them come in to audit our network in the past, and to talk to us about speed and bottlenecks and, you know, cybersecurity and all those pieces. So it's probably something along those lines that they could come in and do something like that for.
The architect might have a line on who
Sure.
does that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you both for taking us through the goals and give a really great start as we move into our second reading.
So
yeah,
just,
I'll
just
ask.
a procedural reminder.
Yeah.
Yep, that, you know, tonight's simply the first reading, and then our next meeting's about a month from now. So any feedback or questions or anything, feel free to reach out, and as we tweak some language here and there, we'll get it out to you to take a look. We'll go. So then the goal would be at our meeting in August to have it for a second reading, and then go from there.
Perfect. Yeah. With that, I'll ask for a motion to accept as a first reading the 2023-2024 New Canaan Public School District Goals and Objectives. Bob, second. Hugo? All right. Great. Any comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to announcements and future business.
Short and sweet. As I said, our next meeting is about a month from now. Between now and then, we'll have our new teacher orientation planning and preparation and administrative retreat, other work going on. Our hiring is going very well. I don't have a specific update for you, but we are in pretty good shape across the district. A couple of spots here and there that we're just looking to shore up. Special education teachers, we're still a little short on our special ed teachers, classroom special ed teachers. So anyone interested, you know, take a look. But beyond that, some of our specialized positions, librarian at the middle school and dean of students, some other things, you know, we're either finished or moving down the road and identifying the best possible person to bring forward. So hiring, it's very active, busy season, but we seem to be keeping up with it. Good. At our next meeting, you know, we will finish our goals. I anticipate having the update from Alan around visual and performing arts, and Hemin for the world languages as well. One of them typically would have been here tonight, but mid-July is a very popular vacation spot, so they're all away, which is perfectly fine. And again, we will talk about our school start time as well. And Michelle was aggregating and disaggregating some of that data today, getting this together. I'll have a preview for you prior to our meeting on.
All right, busy meeting. Motion to adjourn? Penny, second. Hugo, all in favor? All right, have a good night. Thank you.
Thanks.